In the annals of ancient war, few stories burn as fiercely as that of Helen of Troy, the woman whose beauty ignited a conflict that would shatter kingdoms and echo through history for thousands of years. Hers is a tale of desire and destruction, of gods and men, and of the blood-soaked battlefields that forged the legends of the ancient world. It began with a single act of divine mischief. At the wedding feast of Peleus and Thetis, Eris, goddess of discord, hurled into the crowd a golden apple inscribed with the words, "For the fairest." From that moment, fate was set on a collision course with tragedy. Three goddesses, Hera, queen of Olympus, Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, and Aphrodite, embodiment of love and beauty, each claimed the prize. The dispute was so bitter that not even mighty Zeus dared to judge. Instead, he cast the decision to Paris, a mortal prince of Troy, whose choice would doom his city and stain the soil of Asia Minor with the blood of heroes. Each goddess tempted Paris with a promise that could shape empires. Hera offered sovereignty over all mankind. Athena, mastery in battle and the wisdom to conquer. But Aphrodite's gift was irresistible. The love of Helen, the daughter of Zeus, and the most beautiful woman alive. Paris's decision was not just a personal one, it was the spark that kindled the greatest war of the ancient world. Helen's origins were shrouded in myth and majesty. Born of a union between Zeus and Leda, she came into the world as the very embodiment of divine allure. Her beauty was so profound that kings and princes from every corner of Greece gathered to compete for her hand. Her stepfather, Tyndareus, fearing the chaos her choice could unleash, demanded an oath, a sacred pledge from each suitor, binding them to defend Helen's marriage, no matter whom she chose. With this oath, the seeds of war were sown, their roots buried deep in honor and pride. Helen chose Menelaus, king of Sparta. For a time, peace reigned, but the gods, ever hungry for drama, intervened. Paris, guided by Aphrodite and inflamed by destiny, sailed to Sparta under the guise of diplomacy. Whether Helen was seduced by Paris's charm or enchanted by Aphrodite's power, she left her husband and daughter behind, abandoning her throne for the glittering halls of Troy. The outrage that followed was not just personal, it was political, dynastic, and divine. Menelaus, wounded in pride and power, invoked the oath. Across Greece, kings and warriors answered the call. Agamemnon, lord of Mycenae, took command. The peerless Achilles joined, his rage a force of nature. Odysseus, master of cunning, was dragged from his peaceful home. More than 1,000 ships gathered at Aulis, bearing an army that would darken the horizon with their sails. These were not just soldiers, they were legends, bound by honor, driven by vengeance, and willing to storm the gates of hell itself. Troy awaited them, a city of marble towers and impregnable walls, a fortress built to defy the ambitions of men and the wrath of gods. King Priam ruled wisely, defended by Hector, the noblest warrior of the age, and sheltered Paris, whose fateful decision now threatened everything he loved. The Trojans faced an agonizing choice: surrender Helen and live in shame, or stand firm and risk annihilation. They chose to fight. The war that followed was a crucible of heroism and horror. 10 years of siege ground hope into dust. On the plains before Troy, the greatest champions of two civilizations clashed in single combat. Achilles, unstoppable in his fury, hunted Hector and stained the earth with his enemy's blood. Hector, driven by duty and love for his city, became the heart of Troy's resistance. Ajax, Diomedes, Patroclus, Sarpedon. Their names became immortal, their deeds sung by poets for centuries. But the price of glory was steep. Fathers buried sons, mothers wept for lost children, and the city's walls became a tomb for the hopes of an entire people. Inside Troy, Helen watched as the war raged for her sake. Was she a victim, manipulated by gods and men, or a willing participant in the drama? Her presence was both curse and catalyst, her beauty a weapon more devastating than any sword or spear. Each clash on the battlefield was a reminder that desire, pride, and honor can drive men to madness and destruction. When brute strength failed, cunning prevailed. Odysseus conceived a plan so bold it would define the art of war for generations: the Trojan horse, a gift seemingly abandoned by the besiegers, concealed the finest Greek warriors within its hollow belly. The Trojans, trusting in victory and blinded by hope, dragged it into their city. As night fell, the Greeks emerged, opening the gates to their comrades and unleashing a fury that would erase Troy from the world. The sack of Troy was relentless and merciless. The city burned, its towers collapsing into ash. Priam, the wise old king, was cut down at his altar. Hector's infant son was hurled from the ramparts, ending his bloodline. Men and women alike were slaughtered or enslaved. The city, once the jewel of the East, was transformed into a graveyard for ambition and pride. Helen's fate was sealed with the fall of Troy. Menelaus, sword in hand, stood before the woman who had cost him everything. Yet, as legend has it, her beauty was so overwhelming that his rage melted into forgiveness. Helen returned to Sparta, her story forever entwined with tragedy and wonder. Behind her, the smoldering ruins of Troy bore silent witness to the devastation wrought by passion and pride. But victory came at a terrible price. The Greek heroes returned home to disaster. Agamemnon murdered by his own wife, Odysseus lost for a decade in hostile lands, Ajax driven mad by the gods. The ships that had carried 1,000 warriors were dashed on rocks by storms and curses. The world they returned to was no longer the one they had left. Empires lay in ruins, and the age of heroes gave way to darkness. The Trojan War did not just destroy Troy. It marked the end of the Bronze Age, shattering the great palace cultures of Greece and the network of trade and knowledge that had bound the Mediterranean. Civilization itself seemed to crumble, ushering in centuries of decline and obscurity. All this because of one woman's face and the desires it awakened in gods and men. Helen of Troy became a symbol for the ages. Was she the victim of fate or the architect of her own tragedy? Was her beauty a blessing or a curse? The questions linger, haunting poets and historians alike. Her legacy is a testament to the power of desire and the cost of pride. She reminds us that the passions of a few can upend the destinies of millions, and that the glory of war is always shadowed by loss. In the end, Helen's story is not just about the destruction of a city, but about the eternal struggle between love and honor, between fate and free will. Her beauty changed the course of history, leaving behind a warning as old as time. Sometimes, the greatest wars are fought not for gold or power, but for the things we cannot possess without destroying ourselves. And so, as the ashes of Troy settled and a new age dawned, the legend of Helen endured. A reminder that the face which launched 1,000 ships could also sink empires and shape the fate of the world itself. The greatest city of the ancient world lay in ruins, but the story of Helen of Troy would live forever, casting its shadow over every battlefield where desire and destiny collide.